Paul, we had the opportunity recently to sit down in person in the Pisgah podcast studios with Neko Mulally.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful conversation. Big gratitude to Michael McQueen for opening up his studios in Pisgah Forest for us. It's really cool to be able to walk in and press record and have everything good to go. You got a chance to meet Neko for the first time. What kind of general impressions do you have about our conversation?
Yeah, it was a cool time, and thanks again to the Pisgah podcast for hosting us next to the best restaurant in America. So that was that was awesome. Got my tackle okay. Yeah, it was really cool to meet Neko. He's clearly a really intelligent, accomplished guy, and the thing I think that immediately came across for me was, why are people successful? And this is certainly a podcast topic we have coming down the line, but just his grit, how much he works. You can tell he's an intelligent and talented guy, but you can tell he's got a lot going on and he's juggling a lot of different balls. And it's just that work ethic really came through, and that professionalism, and yeah, just a nice chilled guy. And it was really great to sit down and have a chat with him and geek out a little bit about coaching and riding and racing and technique and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I feel like he's one of those like genuinely humble individuals that just absolutely loves to ride.
Yeah.
And has had the ability, the determination to create a world around that, from the racing side to the new bike frame, to now working, building a team, building the amazing riding opportunities that he has here in the Southeast, with the trail centers. So really, really appreciate his time and got a lot out of our conversation with him. And we look forward to sharing that with you all right now.
The wily veteran, 32-year-old Neko Mulally just put on a clinic there in the flat upper section.
No kidding. I mean, that pace was second to none so far.
Just floated across all.
Yeah, look at the pace that he was able to exit there with it. That was unbelievable. What, are you kidding me? He's almost 8 seconds into the green at split 2, Will.
2:04.48. That's 3 seconds, over 3 seconds faster than what we saw from Lucas Dodora charging.
My goodness, Mulally is absolutely on the gas here today. Rocking the 26 plate. My man.
Welcome to Donuts and Bikes, the mountain bike coaching podcast. Your hosts are Paul Howard and me, Kristian Jackson, and we're here to discuss the skills, techniques, and tactics we've used to train and mentor the riders and coaches we've worked with over the last 20 years. Neko, thanks for sitting down with us. Really appreciate you taking time of your day to share some insights about coaching and skills and stuff. We're looking forward to talking with you here. On the off chance that our listeners might not be familiar with you, could you give us your elevator pitch, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's cool to be here with you guys. I'm 32 years old. I'm from Philadelphia. I moved down here to Pisgah Forest about, 15 years ago now. I've been here for a while. Just came down to North Carolina so I could mountain bike all winter. And the trails are actually better all year, so I just stayed. I've been racing World Cups since I was 17, World Cup downhill. Got to race for some really cool teams throughout my career. Had a couple good seasons racing, a lot of injuries, a lot of coming back from injury seasons too. So been like on all perspectives of the racing side of things. I recently started my own team. I started actually making my own bike with frameworks, and then that's transitioned into getting some other riders on the bikes and having my own team now. There's 3 other riders than me on the team. And yeah, I'm involved with a few other things with the sport too, aside from racing. I started the Downhill Southeast Race Series 10 years ago now. I think this is the 9th season of it. We started in 2016. Maybe it's the 10th season if you like start on on
I know what you mean. It's
zero,
the 10th
right?
season of doing it.
Yeah. So that's been really cool. It's grown a lot, and it's a cool grassroots series that I think offers a really good racing experience for all the terrain we have in the Southeast. We got so many cool places to ride, so we kind of bring them all together. And then I started a couple of bike parks as well. First one was Windrock. I was involved with that for the first 4 years, and then I lived 3 hours away, so it was just with trying to compete myself and run that business, it was just getting to be too much. So I bowed out of that one, and then when COVID came around, there was an opportunity to start the bike park here at Ride Canuga, and then 2 years ago, we started the one at Rock Creek, so I'm currently still involved with those two. Yeah,
you felt like you had too much spare time. You wanted another bike park.
Yeah, exactly. I get to do all the things I'm involved with are really cool, so it's easy to get up early and work hard on them because they're all fun.
Totally.
It really seems like the riding and racing community is growing quite strongly here. I was thinking back to when Gravity Nationals was here, 2011 in Beach Mountain.
Yeah.
In 12. Yeah. Seems still pretty grassroots racing, a lot of DIY racers and stuff, and it's changed a lot. And I think you've been a helpful force in that, kind of bringing that professionalism to everyone here, and just kind of seeing the locals that want to race and ride these events just really get inspired by digging into it. It's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, it's my pleasure, and just try to provide an experience that I'd be stoked with, and then if other people can do it too, then it's a win-win.
Right on. Hey, I wanted to kind of dive in here with racing and your background, but from the angle of talking about how did you learn to be a racer? Like do you remember like that process of learning to race?
Yeah, I'd say like I started pretty young. So my dad actually raced Norba Nationals in like 97, 98. And he had a bike shop back in Pennsylvania, and he was really interested in downhill. So he got my brother Logan and I. Logan's 2 years younger than me. He got us both into BMX racing to start with, and then we transitioned from that into mountain biking. BMX was really good because there was a lot of other kids that were our age, and you're racing head-to-head, so you get instant feedback if you're ahead or not. Like if you don't hit it, if you don't come out of the gate and hit the first jump well, someone will be ahead of you. So you get however many gate drops a night, and you get to see where you stack up against other kids your age. And I think that taught me a lot about like how to get in front. That was the goal. Obviously, you're competitive. You want to try to win the race. And you get a good idea of what works and what doesn't in head-to-head racing.
Kind of that immediate feedback, right? Like,
I think that's the cool thing about racing sports is even when it's against the clock, like the clock doesn't lie and it tells you right away. You get what you deserve.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter like how hard you trained, how much effort you put in. It's like the time's the time.
Yeah.
So I think growing up at a young age racing, and I did a lot of BMX racing from when I was like 7 or 8 years old, got more into it until I was 12 or 13. Then I switched to mountain bike. And we do a couple races a week. Like there was a few tracks nearby. And on a Saturday, you could do 2 races. You go to one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And on the weeknights, you could do a different track. And I think just doing that many races, you kind of like got used to like, all right, I'm racing the faster kids are here tonight. It's like you're a little nervous. Like you pull up to the track, you're like, oh, these guys are here. Like you feel a little bit of butterflies in your stomach. And you just get used to it. And it becomes normal the more you do it. So I think that was really good at a young age to kind of figure that out. And then
you're kind of learning about the nerves of the whole thing, regardless of the bike skills. You're sort of learning about the pressure side of it.
Yeah, I think like the question being about racing, like a lot of it's like there's like being a good rider and then there's being a good racer. Like, it can be two different things.
Yeah.
And I think, the mental side of it and being able to like do your best when it counts and clutch position.
Yeah.
That's what being a good racer is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm like the best at that through my World Cup career. I've had some good races, but at a young age, like learning that I think was helpful for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, I like that articulation difference between being a rider and being a racer. And one of the differences that comes to my mind is purposeful coaching or training. Can you recall like your first exposure to either being trained or being coached as a racer?
I definitely can speak more on the training side. Okay. When I was gearing up for my first World Cup season, I was introduced to Colin Izzard from Carmichael Training Systems, who was based down here. They had an office here in Brevard. And he was training some of the other guys. Like at the time, Chris Herndon and Garrett Beatog were really good. They were both living here. That's kind of why I came down here, was Chris invited me to come down and ride with him. That's why I got to know this area. Colin was their coach, and he recommended him. So Colin was more on the endurance side of things, and they're very structured and regimented with all their training. Yeah. So he was giving me like workouts to do that were just super specific. And I think that kind of taught me a lot about getting the work done to be strong enough to be able to race the way I wanted to.
And then how did that continue with you in terms of like the physical training through the World Cup progress? Did he continue on with you, or did you have your own like coaching plan?
Yeah, I worked with Colin just up until like 2 years ago, really. Okay. And I worked with him for 12 or 13 years. So it was working. I mean, and the training plan evolved, like as the sport evolved too. Like there was tracks back then that were more physical, required more pedaling. So it was like sprint focus was more important, I'd say, when I started. And then as the tracks have changed, there's like way less pedaling on World Cup tracks now. So it's more about like having the strength to be able to take huge compressions and more so than being like fit for hard effort. It's like being just super strong to be able to hold on to the bike at the speeds you want to go to. And the only reason I changed my coaching was that I had an injury. I broke a vertebrae in my neck, and I started working with Jarrett Kolich, who he coached a bunch of motocross guys and has a lot more experience on the injury side of things. So it kind of like changed my training around a bit to try to come back better from that neck injury. I was having some nerve issues in my fingers and stuff. So the only reason I switched from Colin was to just get working with somebody more specialized in the injury side of things.
I'm curious, the process of coming back from an injury like that, like in terms of like there's the physical rehabilitation and getting back in, but what other kinds of work did you do in terms of mental or approach to getting back into racing after that?
Yeah, I've had quite a few of them throughout my career, like broken bones mainly. Broken bones are actually pretty straightforward. Normally that's like a linear equation. But some of the other stuff with like nerve injuries and like 2 years ago I broke my pelvis as well, which was like a much bigger injury. There's a lot more related to it. I'd say when I was younger, I'd go to the hospital and they'd say like, "Oh, you broke your arm. It's going to take 8 weeks to heal." And I'd say, "Sweet, I'll be riding in 6 weeks." And I just was like,
just take 2 weeks off.
Yeah, it'll definitely be quicker than they say. Like that's for a normal person. I'll be fine.
I think we all do that. I still do that. Like when I get hurt, I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be fine."
Yeah. But then after doing it, I realized it's like 8 weeks until like you are able to start doing your like your body works as it should.
Yeah.
And then there was like things you have to relearn while you were off to get back to the level you were at. And then while you were off, everybody you're racing against was like progressing. So it's actually probably best to like take that 8 weeks and double it than to take time off of it to when you're actually able to be like where you were going to be, like on your same trajectory.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the goalpost is moving, and the longer you're away, the more that's moving, right?
From a racing side, I think it's at like a top level, yeah, for sure.
Totally. Yeah.
So we often talk about, coaching from a very, very specific like skill-based perspective, and here we're talking about coaching from a physical training perspective. I'm curious, as a racer, learning about skills and getting a better at specific skills, is there anything that you've done specifically to get better at something like line choice or position or anything like that in your training?
You know, we were talking before about how some riders just say like they just do it. And I definitely come from more of that side of things. Like I've even done some people have asked me to coach them as a pro rider. And like I have a lot of respect for you guys, because I have a really hard time explaining some things that I like learned when I was a little kid and I just naturally am able to do. It's like hard sometimes to explain that.
Well, and you learn it, like, I think when you're a kid, and I'm seeing it more and more these days, especially with the bikes these days, because they're so much better. Kids can bike a lot earlier, and then what they can do a lot earlier is a lot higher level, right? Is they learn so intuitively. They kind of just stack their bones and they just sort of trust the process. There's less fear. They learn so intuitively. They don't necessarily have to sort of analyze in the same way. And I think for you and your background, like growing up BMX racing, I'm sure you went through that similar process probably, where you're learning all this technique and skill. No one's coaching you, but you're just learning it by the fact that you're BMX racing since you were 6 or 7, right?
Yeah. I think when you're younger, like you said, you don't analyze it. So it's like you take your brain out of it. It's just like you see it and your muscles do it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely easier at that stage to learn how to do things. And then, I have worked on technique stuff, like mainly just try to get somebody to film me riding sections, and I'll watch in slow motion and see like how I'm handling the section or how the bike's working and how I'm timing whatever section it is. Like I find it, I might not be able to explain it really well, but when I see myself, like I can pretty well know what I need to change, or if I hit it well, or how I'm looking on the bike. And
like, you know, in your head what you need to do. You don't necessarily need to explain it, but you know, like, oh, I need to make this adjustment.
And it's all really like section specific, like depending on every that's what's so cool about mountain biking, is like every trail is so different. I got bored of BMX because it was the same obstacles, just organized in a different order at every track. But like a trail, like every turn is a different apex, there's different entrance, there's different amounts of like camber to it. And when I watch a video myself, I can see if I'm like carrying speed through the apex the way I want to, or if I'm coming in too fast and then losing momentum out, or whatever it is. Like I can normally like look at the section and whether it's another rider or myself, like I can know how to hit that better, or how the best way to hit it is. Yeah. So like for me, like just watching videos is normally pretty helpful. And I've done that, like gone out to do a practice day riding at Windrock and look at some do a run where you take videos through sections. And I used to do it with Dakota and Chris Grice, and I would go out together and we'd all ride a section, and someone would take the videos, and then we'd all watch them and see how we could improve that section. So it might not be as like structured of like the foundation of skills coaching, but like just watching each other and try to.
The goal's the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
How to get better, especially if you know if one of you's quicker.
Normally Dakota was quicker.
Yeah, so if you know he's quicker, it's like, okay, what's he doing that I could do or should do?
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Kristian and I are stoked to be doing this podcast. If you're enjoying the show and want to support us, please take a moment to share our podcast with your friends, families, colleagues, or neighbors by letting them know where they can find us and listen for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever they get their podcasts. The more love we get, the more episodes we can create. Alrighty, get back to the show.
Is there anything that you would say that is an absolute strength of yours as a racer? Is there something like, this is what I do as a racer?
I would say like on the mental side of things, I'm like pretty determined, and normally I keep pushing, sometimes to a fault. Like I definitely don't quit too easily. So that's gotten me through like some tougher races or like seasons where it wasn't going well. Like you just keep like doing, all right, the best I can do this weekend is like my very best in each moment. And have been able to like turn some seasons around pretty well. I can remember like being at one of the World Cups and like struggling to qualify, feeling pretty banged up from some crashes. And then the next week went to the national champs and raced against like Luca and Dakota, who were getting podiums at World Cups, and ended up winning that race just because I was like, well, the best I can do is like just try my best at each thing today. And that was pretty helpful, I thought. I think on the like courses, I was better at tracks where you carry speed. So like I remember racing at South Africa, and that one was like pretty flat, or Fort William back in the day. Like I was describing, the courses required more sprinting in the past and carrying a momentum and like basically trying to get the most out of the track as you could, rather than now it's more managing speed. Like all the tracks are steeper, more committed. You're like, your braking control is like, you can easily go as fast as is possible to go. It's managing that speed now. But back the tracks before, I felt like you had to work for the speed and then carry that momentum. And I was better at those sort of tracks. Like historically, I've had my best results on those sort of tracks.
It was like an Halfio in, was that 2014?
Yeah.
I think you had like your chainless run when that, because I can't remember if you were you fourth or fifth or?
I ended up fourth.
Yeah. Because that sticks out to me as what you were saying of like carrying speed. You obviously didn't have a chain.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of screwed things up a little bit. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe that's why you got that amazing result there without the chain. Is it because you feel like that track was along those lines, like that it was that sort of trying to build or maintain momentum?
I think that track was definitely suited me pretty well.
Yeah.
It was just like kind
of
a
sick track.
The right combination. It was really cool. It was like one of the best mixes of machine built trail and still some really cool natural sections.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get to be all one flavor, and that was a good mix.
Yeah.
We'll go into a little bit more of this in a bit, but I want to come back for just a second to follow up on something you said about determination, and kind of wondering where that comes from in you, like that sense of I'm going to get this done. I'm just going to give it my best.
The grit, kind of.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. I think I've probably been that way. Like it's borderline being stubborn. Like the difference between stubborn and stupid is the outcome. And
I'm going to remember that. Next time my wife calls me stubborn. Or stupid. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think since I was a kid, I always liked to, work hard for things that I wanted to do. And normally the positive feedback loop was when I did that, it turned out pretty good for me. So I guess just building on experiences through my life and family too. Like my parents and my grandparents. My grandparents live like 2 blocks away from me when I was growing up, so I'd spend a lot of time with them. And I learned a lot of that from my grandfather. So
almost like that. Would you say it's like that life skill stuff, like work ethic? You know, how much that can bring you success as an athlete, as a racer? Like I think a lot of people, when they think about how to become a pro rider, and they're like, well, I need sponsorship, or I need to get better on the bike, I need skills coaching. But then there's these other skill sets that have got nothing to do with riding a bike or even racing, but are intrinsically valuable or even essential to you actually being a successful athlete.
Yeah, I would agree. And I'd say it also goes both ways too. Like you can learn a lot through biking that will apply to other things you do in your life.
Yeah.
Like no matter what sport it is, or if you're really anything, if you're trying to be at the top level of it, the same foundation applies. So like I'd say a lot of what I learned through biking, and like I said, that instant feedback loop, that you can take that and be successful in something else in life too. I think that's what's cool about kids getting into sports, especially mountain biking, is they can learn so much, and then like maybe only 1% will make a living racing, but they'll apply all those things, that same like mindset, to another thing in life and be successful at it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think about all of the things that you're doing, the bike parks, the race series, the frame. in my mind, I'm thinking of you as a creator, wanting to bring things into the world. I'm wondering where that kind of instinct came from, because I think it ties in with that determination as well. But like, you don't have to have 3 bike parks on your resume, but they're awesome, right? And you seem to be keep bringing these things in.
Yeah, I don't know where it comes from, to be honest. I'd say like in each one, I enjoy doing it. Like, it's really cool to build a trail. Like, anybody's built a trail, it's like you get to be creative with it and make it the way that you envision it, look in the woods and see where you'd want to go. And it's super fun to do. And when you do it, you can be proud of it at the end. And that gives you, a good feeling. Like, you get a lot out of it personally. And then those bike parks being open to the public, other people can come ride them too. It's super cool to see other people enjoy it. And the same would apply to like making the frame or having an event at one of our downhill races. So yeah, I'd say there's like the same feeling of like when you do a good race and you're proud at the end of what you did. You can have that in these other things too. And I guess what I learned is like a lot of those other things, other people can be stoked on it. Normally when you do good in a race, it's like, it's just for you mainly. But when you do this other stuff, it's like there's like more people affected. And when you see them enjoying it and getting it giving them a good experience, then I think that's gives you a lot of gratitude.
Awesome. Thank you. You've created a team now. Talk a little bit about what characteristics and qualities of riders or characteristics in riders you look for people to be on your team. So you've assembled a pretty outstanding one.
They like donuts.
That's our team.
Yeah, that's our team. Right? Yeah, that's probably not a good prerequisite for a World Cup race team.
It could be.
It could be, yeah. Could be.
I guess the team kind of fell into place. I never really had this plan. Like when I first started Frameworks, I just wanted to make a bike that I was happy to ride. I'd ridden for various teams over the years and it always like had to agree with other people about how the bike should be, or get told like that the bike needs to ride like this, or it needs to fit into our line, or we need to be able to sell it. And I was like, with Intense, we weren't super stoked with the bike in 21, and we're going through a lot of changes. Really, the whole time I was on the team, we were working on figuring out how to make the bike ride better. And I got pretty deep into that engineering side of things. Aaron and I were both on the team together, and like we had similar feedback. We were looking for certain things out of the bike and trying to just communicate better to them so they could give us a better bike. Like that's what was motivating me to learn more about it. And ultimately, I kind of just thought I was tired of being told that we had to do it this way, and I wanted to make my own bike. And I didn't really think that I could like do it better right away. I just wanted to try. I just wanted to, like, if I made the bike and it was bad, then I was the only one to blame. And if it was good, then I could be stoked that I made a good bike. So I ended up like designing the bike. I was like using a 2D program to analyze the other bikes, and I made my own bike in it using like the 4-bar system that I use on my bike. And I just had one made by Frank the welder up in Vermont. I called him and he actually picked up and he remembered me. I tried a couple other vendors in the US and nobody really wanted to do a downhill bike or could do like one bike. And Frank answered and told me how it could be possible. And it was like a pretty reasonable price to make one bike. And he ended up making it for me. And when I first wrote it, it worked exactly how I expected it to. Like everything that I designed on the computer, like I waited 2 months and got the bike, and it actually did that. And it was like better than the bike that we had to race that year.
That's so cool.
And not that it was like the best bike, but it was just the bike that fit me and what I wanted it to do.
Well, and it was, I guess it's kind of proof too that your logic kind of panned out too, like what you had in your head. Like, I think these numbers will work. And then you write, because I sometimes talk about that with coaches. It's like, if you know enough about the bike setup, you can set up your bike or your athlete's bike or whatever just through numbers. Because if you've done it enough over time, you can set up pressures, geometry, whatever, and pretty much guess that it's going to ride like X
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you, especially when you're working with like similar system, like if you're using the same suspension,
Yeah.
then you can know exactly, like I can get a guy set up on Fox suspension pretty quick now.
Yeah.
Based on like how they ride and how heavy they are.
Yeah.
So,
and you probably don't even necessarily need to see them right. You just need a certain amount of data, like age, weight, riding style, average speed, whatever. And you can just...
You can get them 95% of the way there.
Totally, yeah.
In one shot.
Yeah, and chances are they're not 95%. They're probably like...
Normally, surprisingly, they're pretty far off.
Yeah, yeah.
Average person. Yeah. But yeah, I made that bike, and I was impressed with the way it worked. So it inspired me to keep, like, with how good that first bike was. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I'm going to do another one. I'm going to race next year on this bike. Like, if it was bad, I could have easily just said, like, oh yeah, I made this myself. Like, it's a little fun project, and then still rode for another team.
Whack it on the garage wall, and
yeah, I don't think anyone would have not taken me because I made my bike. Yeah. So it was kind of no risk. Like, I spent money on dumber things than that before. It was kind of cool to make your own frame.
Yeah.
And then, it inspired me to keep going. So I raced the bike myself in 2022, did all the World Cups, qualified for most of them, had a couple of issues along the way. Felt a lot of pressure actually racing because I felt like I needed to prove that the bike, or the whole project, like it was kind of a big risk at that time. I remember like at the end of the season in 21, telling one of the team managers, like, snowshoe finishes at the bottom and we got to take the lift up after the race. And I think it was like one of the Trek team managers was like, so what, are you going to ride for Intense again? And I was like, no, I think I'm going to do my own thing next year. He's like, oh, what bike are you going to ride? I was like, I'm going to make my own. And he like looked at me like I was an alien.
Yeah, what are you doing?
What are you saying? And so yeah, there was like, it was kind of a big risk to do that. And I felt the pressure to like perform on the bike to show that it actually worked and that the whole program worked. And I think from the outside, that didn't really matter. Just like being out there in the World Cups justified it at the top level. And whether I got 20th or 40th, like it didn't really make much of a difference.
Yeah.
But I felt the difference. Like I wanted to be up there in with those top 20 guys and put a lot of pressure on myself. And it was only me riding. So yeah, it was kind of a stressful situation, I would say.
I think you did, like, watching from the outside though, one thing I thought was really cool about this whole Frameworks project is like, in a way you've demystified bike design. Like there's so much marketing kind of fluff out there. And in a way it's like, if we just do the basic stuff well and get the numbers right, you get this really well balanced, really good performing bike and you're good kind of thing. On the other side, you've also made it, I think, for someone that's like got that bit more knowledge, is as much as you've demystified it and made bike design simple, I think in another way you've really opened up the door for like people to learn about just how much the details matter. Like if I change the length of the chainstay, or if I just change the pivot by 2 degrees, or whatever it is you're doing, or change the material that you made the chainstay out of. Like, so I think it's kind of cool, that duality where you've made it simple bike design and you kind of got rid of the BS, but then at the same time you've highlighted like how much minutia there is. It's kind of cool, just from like a coaching side, and always talking to coaches about like, you got to understand equipment better, because the equipment is a huge component to make your rider or your athlete better on a bike, right? You don't have to teach them anything, just get their bike set up better. So the more you know, the better you can help them. So I think that was just something I've always seen from the outside looking at the Frameworks project. It's really cool the way you've done that, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree. Like for me, it was just doing the details well, like you said. I think that with anything, that's probably really important. And with mountain bike design, like I feel like it was often very sales driven or design driven. It needs to look good in a silhouette photo, and you need to sell you the next greatest thing. Yeah. And really like you said, making the chain stay the right length or making the geometry correct. Yeah. Like if you just don't look at the profile of the bike and just look at the numbers.
Yeah. The functionality.
That's like, I can't see it while I'm riding it. I just want it to,
Yeah.
I want it to work.
Yeah.
And that's why
That should be your tagline.
well, then there's like sales too. Like, so I get it if that's the, which all of the bike companies, that's
Totally.
the goal. So
Yeah, everyone wants a bike that looks nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally guilty of that. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess like along the way, it just like in each opportunity, trying to like put myself in the best spot. I found Asa. We were at the US Open at the end of that first season, and I got to do the course preview with him. That was the first time I met him. I'd been paying attention to his results, and I offered for him to stay the next day and test ride my bike after the race. And he was stoked to ride it. And more than anything else, I was really impressed with his like attitude towards the test ride. Like so many kids I felt like they don't want to do a full run. They want to know like, hey, how many times are we going to stop? Where are we going to stop? How fast should I go? Like when we went for that test ride, it had rained a bunch overnight, and it was like we raced in the dry and it rained a ton. And he's from Colorado. He doesn't really ride in the mud, and this race is in Vermont. So it's like a pretty muddy track. And we got up to the top of the start, and he just got in the gate, looked back and said, "You ready?" And as fast as he could go, 6 times, just full race run
It's that confidence,
speed.
right?
Like he was going to show me what he got.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool. Like I was really impressed with more than anything else, his like attitude towards that.
Because I guess maybe in that point you realized this is someone I can work with.
For sure.
Like I don't have to kind of bring them up. It's like it's like in a way he's almost there.
I could tell he's like a killer.
Yeah.
And if you got that, then
Yeah.
like you can't really teach that.
Totally.
So I offered, I was like, hey dude, like if you want to keep this bike, you can ride it. Like I don't have a lot to offer you, but right now I can give you this bike and I'll help you as much as I can in the future. Like if we're doing any races together next year, you're more than welcome to like come with me, and like I'll do everything I can. And I think he had a couple of other offers too. So I said, yeah, just take the bike home and like ride all the bikes that people offer you and just choose which one you like best. I was like pretty confident that mine would be the best. Then
Cool.
He called me a month later and was like, yeah, I rode them all and like I could do the fastest times on your bike. So if it's cool, I'll keep it. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, dude. And
How
then
did that feel for you?
it felt like a good confirmation that what I thought was correct.
Yeah.
Like if he would have rode another brand bike and thought it was faster, like everybody has their own preference.
And you might have had some subconscious bias too, right? Because you've designed it. So you want it to work well, and then you're riding it, and potentially you could have been like telling yourself that it's working well.
For sure.
In a way. So then to have another rider like validate that must have been like, okay, it's not just me. Someone else thinks this bike's good.
Totally. At that point, I was the only one really riding the bike.
Yeah.
So it was cool to get somebody else. And sometimes like the younger kids are great because they don't overthink things. Like they'll just tell you how it feels. Like some riders, when they test ride, overthink a bit and try to really get into the weeds with stuff. And normally like the less experienced ones that are at least good riders can just be like, very simple, like better, worse, yeah, good here, bad here. And
I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it. I could do the fastest time on your bike. That's all I needed to know.
Yeah.
And then going into the next season was when I broke my pelvis and I wasn't able to do all the World Cups. So I took any budget that I had for myself that year and just spent it on Asa. Like I got him a ticket over to do Crankworks Innsbruck. And any races that he wanted to do, I just tried to help him as much as I could. And then he, joined, like he had the option to ride for a few teams when he went into the World Cup season last year. And he felt like ours was a family and he was stoked with the bike and everything. So he stayed on the team.
Awesome.
Yeah, it just kind of like all fell into place naturally.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Paul and I get a lot out of this project. We hope you do too. If you'd like to help us grow this show, check out our Patreon. By becoming a supporter, you can help us cover the cost of the show, as well as help us make this an exceptional show with great topics and insightful guests. You can find a link on our website, the mountainbikecoachingpodcast.buzzsprout.com. Thanks. Let's get back to the show.
And then the other riders too was like Angel was kind of the right place at the right time. His team had kind of folded unexpectedly, so he was looking for a ride pretty late. And
because did you ride with him on, I might be wrong, YT?
Yeah. We were teammates for the 2 years that I was on YT. So I knew Angel pretty well and had stayed in touch. And when he was riding the Uno bike, he was developing it, and he saw that I was doing that with my own bike and had asked questions. I think I gave him a shock at one of the races too. And we were pretty close in touch anyway. And then when that all came about and he was looking for a team, we didn't have necessarily the resources to bring a rider of his level on, but because his team had folded and had paid him a part of his salary for the next year just to be able to leave this contract, then we could get him on at a lesser cost to our team. It was just the right place at the right time sort of thing. And
what qualities does he share with Asa, as a racer?
They're actually very opposite.
Right.
Which is good, I think, for both of them.
Yeah.
Angel...
That's kind of what you want on a team, I guess, right? They can play on each other's strengths and weaknesses and kind of balance each other out.
Totally. And I think Angel being the older rider, and he's one of the most attention to detail oriented guys that I know. He does everything perfect. All of his training is perfect. When you watch him ride, as you said, very intentional, where he puts the bike, where he weights the bike. His technique looks to me of all the guys I get to follow, friends with a lot of the other World Cup riders, get to ride with him a lot. Angel's looks like the most perfect technique to me.
Yeah.
He's always leaning the bike the right way, weighting the tires right. He's just really nice to watch. And off the bike, he does all of his training so perfectly. Even down to he wears the blue glasses 2 hours before bed, won't look at the TV. Whereas Asa is he just sends it. He doesn't think about much. Up until this year, he didn't really train. His training was, I want to ride that trail, and it's an hour climb to get there. So the quicker I get up there, I could probably ride it twice.
Yeah.
So he'd just rip up there.
Yeah.
And he ride his dirt bike, and he loves riding it. So he'll ride it as long as he can.
Yeah.
That sort of thing is it's normal as a younger kid. So Angel bring in more of that detail process.
Yeah.
And Asa being that toughness, I think, is a little bit of the difference. A lot of the races last year, both guys had, it happens all the time in the World Cup. Guys crash, you got nagging injuries, and Asa will always push through. And some of the races, he had been so banged up. And
he had his shoulders or something, didn't he?
Both shoulders were pretty bad. And then he'd win the race that day. It was no problem. So I think Asa's toughness is something that Angel can take a lot from. And then on the other side, Angel's process and attention to detail is something that Asa.
That's kind of cool, because I see different riders and even coaches too that I work with where they're they have a really detailed process, and it's almost really analytical, kind of perfectionist in a way. And those people do tend to have less resilience because they rely on that process to perform. And then when the shock is 2 clicks off or something's not quite right, they doubt their performance. And then you got the other learner that's maybe more like Asa, where it's as long as the bike feels good. I think Brat Boy was like this. As long as the bike feels okay, he's just going to go do his thing. And that resilience was there, and the shock being slightly off wasn't going to upset him, right? And that's where I feel Asa's probably learning that attention to detail, whereas Angel's probably learning, just chill. You can perform without 99% of the things. Well, rather, without 2% of the things. If you're only 98%, you're fine. You can still perform, right?
Yeah.
You don't need 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I noticed watching them both. So,
one thing, Kristian?
Anna?
And yeah, Anna was kind of the perfect fit for the team this year. We,
She was killing it last year.
Yeah, she had some really good results last year. I think even before that, I think it was the track walk in Leogang. It was between quali and finals day, And I was like, keep it up. Just keep doing your thing. Like, you're going to be really valuable to some teams soon if you keep that up. And then the next day she got second. So we were watching it on the live timing from the pit and cheering for her. And then, I'd mentioned to her, I was like, hey, I'd love to have, like, not necessarily like looking for a female rider, but just like anybody who would fit our team, like performance wise, and have the opportunity for our team to perform in another category was interesting to me. And I thought she was perfect for that because she was, she kind of like comes from the trenches like we do. Like she wasn't like a pampered athlete that's had everything her whole career. And
she's done a lot of private, essentially.
And she did it all herself. Like that World Cup that she got second, she was like working on her own bike. I think it was like even the last race, she had already signed with us. I went to see her at Mount St. Anne and she had her bike like down to the bearings by herself.
Whoa.
There's like not many riders at all that could do that to their bikes, let alone like a girl being able to strip their bike down and build it up like that.
That's really cool.
So just her like background and then how well she was able to do last year with the resources she had. I thought with our team, like we can only improve on that. So I thought she would be a really good fit. And then the more I got to know her, she's like perfect fit for our team. She gets along with everybody.
Yeah.
And
that personality is, I think, would you say that's a big, like back to Kristian's kind of question, like what are you looking for in your riders? Is it's like the personality is, regardless of anything else, is important? Because I feel like the connection that because we talk about this a lot in coaching, it's like the human-centric approach, being able to connect with people. Like you can be the best rider or the best coach in the world, but if you can't just hang out with someone and connect, you're not going to build that same relationship, and then you're not going to get the same development in their riding, right? Because they're bored or you're not having fun or whatever. Like, is that something you think about now or in the future with your team? Is just regardless of results and how good they are, but like how well will the team fit to that? Because if they're having a good time, chances are they're going to ride better anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And on multiple levels too. Like at this level, they've all established themselves. Like I know that they're good racers. It's more so getting everybody to fit together so we can have a positive working environment. When we're all traveling, like a lot of times we're on top of each other, staying in Europe for 10 weeks at a time. So you need people that can all get along and that are going to be able to handle those situations well. And then if they do, then they'll get the most out of their racing. Like if you look at any of the top, probably like 8 in the either category, they can all be first or 8th.
Yeah.
So getting one of them that fits well and buys into the strategy, and then you put them in a good environment that works for them and the other riders, then it elevates everybody.
Nice. Cool. Should we dig into a bit of technique stuff a little bit? Question for you. I feel like every now and then along comes a rider and almost sort of changes how we ride. Like Sam Hill, I think was definitely one of those guys. The way he kind of stood up on the bike, he was more centered on the bike more of the time. He was quieter on the bike, and he because of those skills, he just started carrying speed better than most, especially when it was rowdy and rough. Fairclough at the time was similar, and then I think another one was arguably Gwyn. You know, he did quite well.
Yeah,
he won a couple of races. You know, but he came in with he kind of had a pretty flat back, really low, super strong, and he just kind of stayed low and strong. So everyone's kind of working on the same outcomes. They're trying to get maximum grip through both tires. They're trying to carry speed, not let the terrain and the bumps slow them down. They're all trying to do the same things, but the way they do it might look or be a bit different. And like, who would you say right now in the either sort of men or women, like in the World Cup circuit right now, can you identify a rider that you think is changing how we ride? And if so, from your point of view, what is it that they're doing differently that maybe other people aren't doing yet, and maybe we need to catch up to?
Yeah, it's tough to answer because there's like a few top guys that all end up on the same 10th of a second that do it a lot differently.
Yeah.
One guy that I love to watch is Amory.
Yeah.
I think he looks really aggressive on the bike. He's super strong. Like if you see him, like he trains hard. He's really fit. He's really strong. I think all the guys do, but he can really manhandle the bike. And his results are a little bit more up and down than some of the other guys, but when he's on, he normally dominates.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see him like charge as hard as he does. I think a lot of it too, then when he is able to ride like that is the confidence.
Yeah.
If you watch like his win in Val di Sole, he's turning on wet roots like they're dry. And that's not because he's strong.
Yeah.
But he's able to take those huge compressions and he's able to like really push the bike as hard as it can be ridden because he's like got this balance of strength and then the confidence to ride that aggressively.
Yeah. How would you compare his riding maybe to say someone like Asa or Jackson, where you've got these three different athletes, three different body types, and something we look at is like the body type, the height or the build of a rider is going to dictate their technique to some extent, and vice versa. Like you can actually change your body type so that you can adopt a different technique, and just bringing that awareness a bit more to that sort of higher level of coaching. Like how would you maybe sort of compare, say, Jackson with Amory or
I think
or Asa?
Asa might be closer to like Amory's style. Like he definitely rides aggressive and he's not quite as precise, but he does make it look smooth. He definitely gets out of sorts sometimes, but he's bigger and stronger, so I think he can handle that. And I think he's going to grow into that too. Like he like I said, he hasn't done a lot of training, but he's starting to now.
Because he's just started strength training, hasn't he?
Yeah, and even this year he looks a lot stronger. Yeah. Like physically he's stronger than he was last year.
That's pretty cool though, for like all the 15-year-old groms out there getting in the gym, you know, like just maybe chill a little bit. Like
well, I think there's something too where like if you learn your technique before you're strong,
totally,
then you have to have good technique because you can't do it with bad technique.
And that's largely why kids do have good technique, because they're not strong enough to have bad technique.
Yeah.
And it's vice versa for adults. That's partly why they have bad technique a lot of the times, because they can overcome with strength, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think you see that a lot when they learn how to ride fast before they're strong. Like that, normally they got to do it right.
Yeah. Like my daughter's 12, 13, and her corner speed is bonkers.
Yeah.
But she's got no muscles. I mean, it's like a rubber band of a quad, right? Like it's tiny, but the way she stacks her bones, her position, it's just...
If you do everything perfect, then you really don't need to be that strong.
Yeah.
But in a downhill race, it's really hard to push that hard and be perfect.
Yeah.
And that's where the strength comes in.
Yeah.
Jackson, I'd say his body type, I think, lends itself to being better at different sections. Like whenever it's steep, he's so good. Yeah. I think he's just able, being lighter, to like come into a turn later and get down to the max speed. You can hit that corner at a later, like closer to the apex. Yeah. And then being light too, like he's able to...
His direction change can be so much quicker because he doesn't have the same amount of mass to suddenly turn left or right.
Exactly. And then like through any of the rough stuff too, he's able to be like lighter on his feet. Yeah. Sometimes like when... Like World Cups, I feel you're always on the edge. You never have great grip. And when you can be lighter on your feet, then the bike's not sliding around as much. So he can jump stuff. He's normally the first to do a lot of the gaps on the tracks. And when he lands, he can land like really light to where the bike's not sliding, getting out of shape. So whenever it's gnarlier, that's where I think Jackson excels. Yeah. And then sections where it's flatter, he struggles because he doesn't have the weight to carry the speed through there. Yeah. Or the strength for like the bigger compression sort of stuff.
And that's what was surprising though, because at Hardline Tasmania, I think Jackson had the fastest on that motorway section. I think he had the fastest speed on that. I could be wrong on that. I have to double check, but that's what I was really surprised when I saw that. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that because he weighs like the same as my shoe kind of thing.
Totally. But then, like, so when he does that well, he can carry good speed. Like, he's obviously really good at that sort of stuff. But then in the first split, right out of the start where it was steep, he was up by a lot.
Yeah.
So, like, that stuff he can ride way faster. Yeah. Doesn't have as much weight to get through those steep sections.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool. I mean, I love talking about this stuff, but like, you compare someone like Jackson, who's kind of shorter, lighter, he tends to pop and unweight over a lot of stuff. He's like, why hit the roots? I might as well just jump over them, kind of thing. Whereas a heavier rider and you know, Amaury, it's like if you're going to unweight, you've got to deal with that force when you land. And so he tends to sort of glide and skip over it. And you're right. I think Amaury in a way is just, his riding style and his position is very similar to Ace's. He does ride a little bit lower, but the lower you get, you have to be stronger. And I think that's what Gwyn brought to the game, was like, and you've obviously ridden with him a ton, and he came for a motocross and had that bit more of that sort of experience with personal training, strength training, and he just brought this sort of new strength, I would say, to sort of downhill racing at that level, and that allowed him to ride lower for more of the time, and I can kind of see that now in this generation of Amaury and these guys with just getting more experience with putting on strength basically and just building muscle, and like you said, the tracks have changed, right? They're so fast now, they're so rough. It's at some point, if you get to a certain height or sort of body mass, like, you just need to be strong to hold on to those things.
Okay, so we just wanted to take a quick break to say thanks for listening. And if you're a rider or coach out there and you have an idea for a topic or future episode, feel free to let us know through the comments on our Instagram page @DonutsAndBikes. We're always happy to hear suggestions from our listeners on what we can do or ways to make the podcast better. Thanks, team. Let's get back to the show.
One thought I kind of think about sometimes is, like, in racing you have, or mountain biking, whether it's a recreational rider or you know, an intermediate rider, or on a jumps clinic, or like someone like Ace or at World Cup, you've got these 6 components of performance, like equipment, environment, physical, psychological, technical, and tactical. And a lot of the time at World Cup levels, you'll see people obviously dealing with the equipment. The bikes that are huge. Tactical, you know, like line choice and stuff like that. Psychological, people talking about that now, like people are starting to get more sports psychologists to help them out. And often they're trying to find like 2%. It's not like at that level, like World Cup level, it's, you know, clearly it's not like someone's missing 20%, otherwise they wouldn't be at the World Cup level. But one thing I find interesting as a skills coach is they're often looking at, how can I get 2% more from my suspension setup or my tire choice or my line choice or something like that? And I guess my question is, like, have you or will you think about in the future, or what's your experience been with thinking of technique in that way, and how can I get 2% out of the technique? And to sort of preface that, it's like World Cup level, there's not necessarily a technique deficiency, but something I've seen, if you look at like ski racing or other sports that have been around longer, is like the awareness of the technique in the World Cup athletes is so high that they can actually start to change the technique and sort of use technique as a tactic. Or if I'm more aware of the different positions I can have through a corner, I can start to maybe try a couple. Almost like suspension setup. I can try a slightly firmer or slightly slower setting and see if I get another 2%. Is that something you've thought about in the past, or maybe starting to work on? I know you were working in the wind tunnel lately and looking at body positions. Like, how much are you sort of factoring in, how can I get 2% more from Ace's technique, and not just 2% more from his suspension or from his strength, but like actual sort of technique side of things?
I would say I haven't shot that much for just technique.
Yeah.
I think it's like kind of all blended together, and more looking at it as like, if we have the opportunity to gain, like if Ace's time is this and Amaury won the race 4 seconds quicker, like where can we best direct our time and energy to gain the most of that time.
Yeah.
And
what's the lowest hanging fruit kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the past, I think for him, it's been strength. Like he just wasn't strong enough to be able to go through a full weekend and be able to take crashes.
Yeah.
So that's been like the biggest focus. And then a lot of the stuff we've been learning with the bike has kind of applied to all riders. A lot of that's driven by Angel. He's more experienced with that, and that kind of trickles down. And I think like for their level, there's not necessarily like one right way to do it, in my opinion.
Totally.
Like you got all the body types like we talked about. There's different bike setups. Like, so depending on like your body type and which bike you're on, you might have to ride that bike differently, and it might take, like, the goal is the same, is to go the fastest from the start to finish, and then within that, like, carry the most speed out of this.
In a way, it's like do whatever you need to do to get the fastest time.
For sure. That's more how I look at it.
Yeah, totally.
And I think like it's cool, like the races that I've gone up on track and filmed a section that they want me to look at and see the way different riders are hitting it. You can just watch the guy that's the fastest and see what he did and try to see why he ended up being the fastest. Maybe it's something that you can replicate. Maybe it's like Loris is just better than everybody else. And like I saw him hit it, doesn't mean I can do it.
Yeah.
And you kind of just have to leave it at that at some times and beat him at something else.
Yeah.
But
or something.
It's crazy. But I think it's like a blend of everything. And I think the riders, like, I struggle sometimes to criticize their technique because they're much better than me, and Angel and Asa are. With Anna, I've been able to help her more. Yeah. Like, we've been looking a lot. Like, she struggles to drop her heels a lot. So I think that's something that she could, like, she gets thrown forward quite a bit.
Yeah, because the hips come forward because she can't. Yeah.
And like we'll watch like a slow-mo video and show her that she's not doing it, and like have like worked on different things off the bike to give more mobility to the heels, like trying to measure like standing away from a wall and keeping your heel on the ground, and like how far can you get your foot from the wall and still touch your knee. Yeah. And like to quantify like, oh, I'm getting more mobility in my heel. Yeah. And then be able to apply that to the riding.
That's really cool, because like when a common thing that Asa does like through his corners is he'll drop the heel and he'll really stack the legs, and he has this hinge at the waist, so it's almost like an upside down L, like flat back, straight legs, straightish legs. And you know, Anne-Marie and a lot of the riders do the same. I think that's where Asa is, to your point, like, you know, quote unquote criticizing. Like I've heard that a fair bit in mountain biking, and I think at that level it's not a question of necessarily criticizing. It's just trying to highlight pros and cons, and that's something we that's how we really look at coaching and skills. Is what's the pro of that one? What's the con of that one? And if it's pros and cons, now what we can do is we can take that and make it situational. So that's really good in that situation, but not the best here. And so as a coach, it's like I can go to a World Cup athlete, because a lot of the time I'm coaching people way better than me. So I'm like, I'm not going to pretend I can ride as well as you, because I can't. Otherwise I'd be racing, I wouldn't be coaching. Because I love racing, but I'm not very good at it. But as a coach, I can say, hey, look, here's some choices for you. You can drop your heels here. You can bring your chest up, or you can bring your chest down. Try this and see where you prefer that and where you don't prefer that. And then through that process, we can find these little percentages where now we're squeezing a bit of technique out of that rider, a bit more technique, not because we're necessarily making them better. We're just making them more aware of the different techniques. And then how they can use them as tools. Essentially, techniques are just tools, and the more knowledge you have about the technique, the more tools you have at your disposal, right? So that's sort of a, you know, again, going back to Asa, like, I think partly why he's so far ahead at the game, considering his age right now, is his technique is arguably the best out there, some of the best out there. You add strength to that, and that's where the triangle kind of comes in with, you know, bike technique, strength, and what's the other one? My brain's gone bonkers. I've got all my little notes here. Oh, bike setup. There you go.
It's the jet lag.
That's it. Yeah.
It's the jet lag. 2 nights and 5 hours sleep. Yeah, like bike technique, bike setup, and strength, and that's where those things kind of impact each other. And is that something that resonates with you, perhaps a little bit, with thinking about technique in that sense, where you could work with your riders and you can potentially get them to try some different things, rather than it being like, you're not doing this, you should do this, and it's more like, hey, let's try a couple of different options here and see if it feels better in the corner this way, for example.
Yeah, totally. I think it's really important to like set time aside from the races to work on all that stuff.
Yeah,
they can't be overthinking it while they're at an event like that. You're there to take the test. You're not there to study. So I think having time to work on that outside of the races,
off season.
That's the best time for these type of guys.
Yeah.
And Anna is really receptive of it. And sometimes like it's even carried over into these couple preseason races where she was trying to think of these things that we told her like during the practice for the race. And like, no, it's not the time. Like you got to get that stuff to be subconscious by the time you're at the race.
Absolutely.
I can tell a little bit that like if I told Asa or Angel how to ride, they would be like, yeah, whatever, dog.
For sure.
And I almost like that, they're that confident in themselves that they're like, don't want to be told how to ride.
Yeah.
But I if it was at the right moment, I think they're open enough to like, hey, here's the section, watch yourself hit this. Like you can see that you're struggling or like you could hit this better if you moved this way.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. Like I was saying, I really like to see myself in a slow-mo video. If you can show them that in a slow-mo video and explain it, that's normally the best way.
I think that's a cool thing in the sport where like, there was a time where I think, you could probably, arguably, there would be races there, like if you told them about bike setup, they'd be like, yeah, whatever, my bike setup's fine. But we've got to a point now where like you could get Geordie or someone to come in and be like, okay, I'm going to feel your bike and I'm pretty much going to tell you what you need to do with your bike, right? And I think we're kind of starting to get to that point a little bit in mountain biking where a lot of these coaches, a lot of these riders coming up now, they have been, especially where I live in Whistler, it's like they're coming up through coaching programs. So like my junior race team, for example, we've got riders that are sort of just getting onto the Continental Series and World Cups, and you talk to them about technique, and it's the same as talking to them about bike setup. They're like, they know they're faster than me or the coach. So there's no kind of defensiveness, I guess. They're just like, tell me what I need to do. Well, you pumped that there, and you could probably pump it a little smoother and longer. Like your pump was really quick and you actually slowed the bike down. Your pump needs to start earlier and be more gradual through the turn. A bit more like PD and a bit less like Sam Hill for that turn.
Yeah.
But another turn, it might be the other way around. So that way, again, it's not like, I'm not telling you how to ride. I'm just saying you did it like this way. Try it this way. See if you carry better speed. And
totally.
Just like Geordie might say with suspension setup, oh, you had it set up like that. Well, why don't we try that and see if it helps? Yeah. And that's why I get really excited about potentially the future of downhill racing, because I feel like when we can sort of untap that resource, that's where even at the World Cup level, we can just raise the bar again, right? Because there's another 2% there. I think, in getting those riders to think about technique, not as right or wrong or better or worse, just like, hey, let's build our awareness so we can understand the options and the tools and then being open to try those tools. But I like what you said, like we often talk about in long-term skills coaching, like reinvestment, which is when you're consciously thinking about something you should be doing subconsciously. So there's a time and a place to talk about technique, especially with athletes, because you have the race weekend, you have the race season, like you need them just to be on automatic at that point. And so their only thought or decision that weekend is usual stuff, line choice, bike setup. Am I going to do 2 practice laps or 3 practice laps? And what am I going to eat for breakfast? Where are the donuts, that kind of stuff, right? So I love that you said that, because that's such a big piece of it is skills coaching works, but it, like everything, it's when do you do it and how much do you do it? And then you tailor that for the athlete. And because every athlete will be kind of predisposed, right? Like you've done that, Kristian, with working with coaches too. There'll be different riders that just are sponges, and then there'll be other riders that are a little more like, I'm good. I don't need help. I got this.
I think it's finding like the right time, like we said, but also the rider being open.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like being confident in what they're doing. Like I see a lot of kids who there is more access to coaching now. We see it at like even the local races where they almost don't take the responsibility for themselves. They just like somebody should tell me what to do. Yeah, I'll wait for my coach to tell me. Or what time should I wake up today?
That's the con of coaching, right? Like pros and cons. Yeah.
So you need the kids who are like, no, I know this is exactly what I'm going to do. I know what I'm going to do. But then still be open to being given some constructive criticism at times.
Yeah, that receptivity is so important. It's almost like it can't really teach it necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit on the coach, I think, to know, like I said, when and how much, like when to bring in that coach in and what elements are going to make a successful racer. Like autonomy and confidence is huge. That goes back to the psychological component. Like a good coach isn't just technical, they're a little bit psychological, a little bit physical, right? Like let's look at that psychological component. And that sports psychology, is that something you've played with, or are there other riders that you know have kind of gone down that road?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty popular thing amongst.
Yeah, it seems to be getting more popular.
For downhill especially.
Yeah.
I actually worked with a sports psychologist for quite a few years. I think it was like from 2015 to 2021 sort of time. Honestly, what I got most out of it was like, I felt like it helped me to frame things in a realistic and positive way most of the time. And one thing that I didn't like from the way that I was doing it was it kind of took the killer instinct out that I wanted. Like in the end, it was framing things in a way that was like looking at it all like the good and everything. And I was like, well, I don't care if I'm miserable. I just want to win this race. And
that's how you perform better, is you need a little bit of that.
Well, that's what I wanted at the time. Like I wanted to win. And I didn't really care that I was like looking at it through this positive lens.
Interesting.
But it helped me, I'd say, overall with life to like get into other situations that were challenging, to be able to frame them in a way and try to problem solve them in a productive and positive way.
Yeah. I
think that sports psychology applied to that better maybe than the racing, at least for like the racing outcome that I was looking for.
Yeah.
But I think it's just depending on who you're working with. And
yeah, totally. That's interesting too, because I feel like with sports psychology, like trying to change the mindset or even like the physical, like get stronger, that stuff is hard, especially the mind. Like, and that's a long-term thing. Whereas I feel like sometimes with technique, like going back to low-hanging fruits, well, if I can just get them to push earlier or get a little bit lower on that section, or a lot of the time, especially with a really good athlete, like a physically aware athlete, technically aware athlete that can kind of make those changes, you can almost get like, you can change it that week, you can change it that weekend. Whereas like trying to not be so negative because you get poor results when you're negative, like, oh my God, that's like a 3-year project.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Totally. I think there's a lot of riders that they have all the ingredients.
Yeah.
And it's just like some people that I watch, like, or even like some of the junior kids that we've been working with a little bit on the local races. And it's like, they can change everything tomorrow. They just got to like, everything that they needed to do better is like within them. They just need to do it.
The motivation.
Or just like apply.
Yeah.
Right? Like you said, like ride this way, or like they don't need to be different. They just need to do the technique different.
Yeah. The discipline a bit.
Yeah. They're open and they don't have like the set in ways that, that we do, the patterns.
Yeah.
They're able to just turn it on.
And then, like you said, the mental thing, like it might seem simple, but it's just like you're not going to go in and double your squat tomorrow. Like, you're not going to change the way your brain's wired in one week.
One session. Yeah, totally.
I got a wrap up question for you.
Okay.
So, racing aside, coaching aside, technique, bike parks, frames, teams, etc. What does going on a fun ride for you look like?
Most fun riding I do is out here in Pisgah. Like when I go to the bike parks, and it's designed to be fun, but I go there so often and I train, or I am there to like work at the bike park. So fun for me is going and riding a lot of the single track out here. Like this past weekend, I rode Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and like rode each day until I was like couldn't ride anymore. I'd been on preseason races for the past 4 weeks in a row and really didn't do much pedaling over that time. Like I was doing downhill races every weekend, and then my team was with me that I was responsible for. So a lot of administrative stuff as well. So this is like first weekend off, and it was like, I just let my phone die and just ride for 3 days and
Awesome.
till I couldn't pedal anymore. And it's a blast. I love living here. And this time of year, like spring and fall are the best times. The temperature's good and the trails are sweet. So
yeah, I often say like everyone says Whistler's like the Mecca for mountain biking in the world, but in my mind, North Carolina is. But we don't tell people that.
Yeah,
keep it quiet.
I think people know now.
Yeah.
Neko, thank you so much for sharing coaching stories and racing stories and everything. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, awesome to get just some of your insight and thoughts on things. I really appreciate your time. Busy man, and congrats on all the frameworks success, and hopefully that continues.
Thank you very much. I hope so too.
All right, that brings us to the end of another episode of Donuts and Bikes. We hope you enjoyed this conversation with Neko Mulally from a coaching perspective. We like to think that riding bikes isn't rocket science. It's really more about pros and cons rather than rights and wrongs. Please take care for using any of this information discussed in this episode, and you can find our full disclaimer on our website at themountainbikingcoachingpodcast.buzzsprout.com. Stay safe, ride smart, coach smarter, and we'll see you next time.